For tonight, I wanted to do an overview of the quiz. I said I was going to. I was going to do a separate video and just post it out there. But I figured instead of doing that, I'd rather do it live so some of you get an opportunity to ask some questions. And that way, if there's something that we glossed over or that you're feeling a little insecure about, we can get into depth on that with actual live feedback. And then that way, everybody can benefit from it. Because if you have the question, guaranteed somebody else has the same one. So, would you rather do the quiz review at the beginning or the end? Any
And
preferences?
probably at the beginning,
Okay.
so we actually get it done.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. Um, Sounds good to me. So, just so everybody knows, the quiz is actually only 14 questions, but it is 50 points, whereas most of your assignments are 25 points. So this is double the amount of an assignment. The midterm will be double the amount of a quiz. So the midterm will be 100 points. Quizzes come in two flavors. There is a theoretical quiz, which is just questions, fill in the blank, stuff like that. And then there's a coding quiz. The coding quiz is basically you get a piece of code that's either broken, you get to fix it, or ask you to solve a task. Those happen towards the end of the course and more frequently after we've gotten all the foundation out of the way. The way I feel about programming is this. Not everybody wants to be in this course. This might be a prerequisite. Not everybody gets the coding brain the first time around. I know from my experience personally, I took several coding classes before I even started to get it. And then once I got it, I fell in love with it, but it didn't serve me any any justice when I was getting graded the first couple times. So I recognize that other people are like that. I want to give you as many parachutes and fail safes as possible. So to do that, for the theoretical quiz, which is pretty much memorization, I do give you two opportunities to take the quiz. You don't get to see what the answers are, of course, but you get more than one opportunity. Harley can tell you from my electronics course, I feel like it's fairly forgiving practice. Cool. For the actual coding quizzes, usually the way it works is I grade you on a gradient on a scale. If you make an attempt, if you follow the directions, you're guaranteed to at least get 50% right off the bat. If there's something that you're having problems with, you're not being able to get it, you do your best, you put it out there, and we'll grade it from there. After that, I like to throw the quizzes back and we open it up as a full form as a classroom. You participate, you understand a little bit, and then you resubmit with your newfound knowledge, you can gain some more points back. I'm not going to say if you're not turning in any assignments and all of a sudden you just rely on the quiz to save you, it's probably not going to get you through the fire. But at least if you're doing the assignments, you're putting in the effort, and you give it a second go after we've gone through the form together with the entire course, chances are you're going to come out okay. So that's the way I feel about programming. That's the way I feel about teaching programming. It's not for everybody, I understand that. And for a lot of individuals, it just takes time and it takes reps. And you don't get the luxury of reps in a 16-week class. Any questions on that? All right. Well, I try to make it easy. If
Uh,
you guys have any questions, please let me know.
Justin, when are you going to post the quiz?
Oh, that's another of my housekeeping items. If there's anybody who cannot see the quiz right now, please let me know. Can anybody access the module in Canvas? Because from my end, it looks like it's up.
Oh, okay.
Harley's
That's
saying that
good
he
idea.
sees it. Groovy. Okay.
I see too.
Okay, cool. So you should be able to see it. If you haven't, maybe just hit refresh on your browser and it'll pop up there for you. All right, so let's talk about some of the stuff we're going to see. I'm going to make it fairly succinct so we can dive in, but I want you guys to feel comfortable.
And one more question.
Yes, please.
When is it due? Like the assignments, the quiz,
You'll have
the midterm.
2 weeks to complete the quiz from tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
I want you to take your time, but I also don't want you to wait too long because there's a lot of content that comes in the next 2 weeks, and I don't want you to flood your brain and forget the beginning stuff. Um, it's always the catch-22. Like you'll have more knowledge, so you'll have a better understanding, some better fundamental understanding of Python, but also it's just a bunch of junk in your brain that you might forget some of the simpler things. So, play that edge as best you can. All right. So, as you know, all of the lectures are online, all of the PowerPoints are online. If you look at my PowerPoints, you'll note that I use a lot of coloration in the PowerPoints. If you see something that's in a different color, chances are it's worth knowing either for your benefit or because it'll be in a quiz. I think I've dropped on several occasions during the lecture. I'm like, if I were going to put this in a quiz, probably means I'm going to put this in the quiz. I also have a habit of answering, at least in part, some of the questions in the quizzes. If you go further down and you're just, somewhat savvy about how you're answering, and you'll see like, oh, what is this? What is a variable? And then later on it says, so when declaring a variable like this, what would your response be? If you didn't know what a variable was early in the quiz, then you can go back after that. So be mindful. Don't feel like once you've answered a question, that's it. You can always go back beyond that point. So some things that I will ask you in the first quiz. We had a conversation about what kind of programming language Python was. We had we had two main fields of thought. There were compiled programming languages, there were interpreted programming languages, there were scripting languages. You should know which one Python is. If you have a question about that, look in the week 0 folder under Intro to Python, I believe is the name of the PowerPoint. So that will help you get through that. You should know what the terminology we use when we're talking about a line of code. So if you remember when we were declaring a variable, I said, hey, this equal sign is also known as a something operator. The part in quotes are to the right of the equal sign. Is it a value? Is it a variable? Is it a statement? So those are the terminologies that you're going to want to know. And not because I'm being a stickler and a hard ass about the nuances of the language, but because if you end up doing this, or you need help by going in the forums online to try to figure out what's what, using the right verbiage will get you much more mileage than trying to explain to people like, hey, I'm trying to figure out how to save something to a word, as opposed to declaring a variable. And unfortunately, in the online forums, people are not nice and they'll eat you alive. So I want to give you the best head start you can if you want to continue to do this, or if you want to ask for help, online beyond, asking me. There was a couple of pages where we talked about the diction of Python. I don't know if you recall, we were talking about an alphabet, a lexis, the syntax, and we put a definition to those terminologies. Know what those ones are. You will either get an example of what one is, and you'll be asked what it is, or you'll see the word with the definition. I think that one is a matching. So, if you know at least a couple of them, it increases your rates dramatically of getting the right answer. Let's see. You should know what some of the symbols that you're coming across do and what they mean. For instance, if you a hashtag or a pound symbol, does anybody remember what that does?
Is that to comment out something?
Right, correct. That's to comment a line. And when you comment a line, it basically makes it so the code is not interpreted. And then you can basically make notes to yourself without having to worry about the interpreter throwing errors. I think in almost all the videos, I refer you to use your interpreter. So that also gives you a clue on what kind of programming language Python is. It's interpreted, by the way. I leave nothing to mystery. Variable declaration, you should know and also redeclaring a variable. We talked several times about how Python is a dynamically typed language, and you should get the premise that if you assign a value to a variable, then that value has a tag. It's the name of that variable. So what happens if you use that variable? Also, if you take that same variable and you assign another value to that variable, what would happen? You should know your data types. And remember, I gave you a whole list, but I also highlighted in yellow only the ones that I said you should really worry about. So strings, integers, booleans, floats. Throw lists on that one too, because that's what we'll be talking about tonight. So somebody give me an example of a string. What would a string data type consist of?
Letters or words?
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah. Letters, words, characters. That's right. Give me an example of an integer.
Number.
Exactly. A boolean.
True or false?
Perfect. Exactly right. And then a float is like a number except it has
Decimal.
exactly decimals. And then tonight we're going to learn that lists are a form of collection, which is multiple values assigned to one variable. Let's see. I think we've gone through pretty much all of them. Oh, we talked about a concept called concatenation, which is essentially appending text onto existing text. So you should be familiar if you're given a concatenation example, what the result of that concatenation example would be. So for example, if you have a string that says string 1 and then you have another string that says string 2 and you concatenate those, it looks like string 1, 2. No spaces in between, no additional characters. It is what they call string literal. It is a verbatim smushed together of those two. No additional mathematical processes happen. It's just squish them together. We should know that when we're programming, all indexes start at number
0.
0. Exactly. We don't start with 1 in programming. Everything starts with 0. And I touched on this briefly, but I think there's a question on there. I can't find it. Talked about primitive data types. So I'm going to say this again. I'll just give it to you right now. Primitive data types would be considered strings and integers. Floats too, but so anything that's not an object, which is, even though everything in Python is an object, something that's not a complex amalgam of data would be considered a primitive. So if you come across it, a string, a character, a number, those would all be considered primitives. Even a sentence, still considered primitives. That is a bulk of the content on the quiz. All those things that I just mentioned. I'm trying to think of anything that I can give you a hand with that wouldn't be giving something away. I can tell you what won't be on there. We won't be talking about functions on there. I won't say anything about parameters, even though I've colorized talking about parameters and functions. You won't have to do anything with collections or lists other than be aware of what they are. I think that will serve you well. Any questions that aren't directly what is the answer to number 7 that I can help you with? All right. If something comes up, let me know. Obviously, before you take the quiz. I feel like you guys got it. I feel like you got it. It's a combination of a very forgiving quiz, easing our way into this, but also, you know, I try to support you as best I can with the material. Just give everything a good once over. You don't have to listen to an hour-long video. Just look at the PowerPoint. You should be rocking and rolling. All right. Do we feel good about this? Are we ready to move on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Boom, we're nailing it.